Hey everybody, welcome to my first live classroom meeting. Today I expect to get over my jitters doing a live event, but also I'm going to show you, mostly I'm going to show you how to do some basic corrections in Photoshop. So if there are any questions, jump in the chat and I'll respond to them here. I expect to do this every week to provide some opportunities for you all to interact in online classes and other folks out there who want to learn a little bit about Photoshop and Photoshop and image making. So here we go. Let's get this started. Over here in Photoshop, I'm going to click on File, Open, and I have this picture here on my desktop called Old Photo Basic Corrections. I just double click it to open, and we'll see what happens. I've got too many screens going. All right, there we go. Let me go ahead and just, you've seen me. Hi, I'm here. All right, that's a lot more comfy. So here we have this old picture, September 1971. It's crooked, it's an old, Polaroid, it's lost a lot of its color, but it's a, cool old family photo. The first thing that I want to do here is straighten it. And to do that, I'm going to use the crop tool, which is this one right here on the left-hand side. When you click on the crop tool, the first thing that we can look at, right, is this is crooked. I can't really crop it because it's crooked. I want it to be straight. So I'm going to click on the straighten tool, this little bubble level here, and I get this cursor, right? And I just click and drag it out along some line in the picture that I think should be straight. Boom, there it is. Pretty nice. Solid beginning. Now back in the crop tool, now I can crop it, right? Now I can make it straight. Up here in the tool options, I'm going to click on the ratio drop down and I'll click 1:1 for square. And then I can just give my cursor over here and drag in this crop box to get a nice square thing. I would normally drag it all the way into the picture like this, but I really like this little Polaroid edge, so I'm going to keep it in there. Then I can, with my mouse cursor buttons, I can click on the image and kind of move it around in my box here to get it where I want it to be. And then I click enter, and I have this nice image. Notice when I use the crop tool here, it gave me my rule of thirds grid, which is really helpful for putting things where you want them in the picture. One of the reasons I think I like this picture so much is it's really super rule of thirds. It's a well-composed little old-time snapshot. All right, there's our crop. Now we'll work on the color. What we can do there, right, on the right-hand side in Photoshop is our working panels. These are the information about the image we're working on. And down here is the layers group. Layers are an essential component of Photoshop. It's they are what allow us to do non-destructive changes in our images. Best part of Photoshop. And in order to maintain my non-destructive work process, I always, in my layers, I click on this background layer and I click and hold and drag it down to this plus, make a new layer. Alternately, you can click on a layer and press Command J on a Mac. and it'll copy a layer. I recommend using the keyboard shortcuts. It makes everything easier. But after copying the background layer, I'll turn it off, right? It's locked, it's turned off. I always have that layer. It's never going anywhere. I can always go back. I can always go back to my original image. I double click on that layer name I copied, background copy, and call it working. You can call it whatever you want. And now I'll start working on the color. To do that, I'll come up here to layer and I'll say new adjustment layer, right? An adjustment layer is something you use to make adjustments, right? Changes in the picture. In this case, I'm going to make a new adjustment layer, and we'll start with levels. I'll just call it levels 1, okay. So as I talk, in Photoshop, there's any number of ways to get to the same tool. Normally, right, we came to layer, new adjustment layer. You can also come down here to this black and white cookie and click on it and have the same layers. This is normally where I do it down here. So levels is the level of dark and light in the image. We have dark on the left and white on the black. We have black on one side and white on the other. Literally the values 0 for black and 255 for white, which is what these numbers represent. So you can see that there's no black in this image. Everything falls in this kind of middle gray area, which we can see with our eyes. To make it look much better, we can just drag this black slider in, to about 50. Usually it's a good place to start right here at the edge of the histogram. Oh, it might be helpful to know what a histogram is. Histogram is what we're looking at here. It's this graph of the color values in the image, or in this case, the black to white value. We don't really have a very good white either, so maybe I'll drag this in some. I think it's making a weird color cast, so I'm not going to mess with it. But we used levels here to kind of add some contrast back in. So I'll turn it off, right? We can see what we did. That doesn't even look great. So let's bump it up a little more. Now we're getting there. And you can navigate by these numbers or whatever you like, but I do it by feel, like most everything. That's a good start. Let's see, I want to fix the colors, and to do that, I'm going to make a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to call it curves. Well, I'm not going to call it curves, that's what it is, it's curves. So I click on the black and white cookie, I click on curves, and curves is like a fancier levels, right? It allows you to kind of adjust with a little more finesse, right? In this dark area, it's not 100% black, it's just in the dark kind of quarter. And then I want to raise everything above a certain white level up. I've usually found that putting a spot right here where the curve intersects, usually right here, the middle kind of hill, I've usually found that putting a spot right there and kind of adjusting it helps me out. That's a little better. We've also always got the option to use the auto button and see what Photoshop thinks. Right? Usually it'll put a dot here, and I find that moving this up is more pleasing for me. Sure, we'll leave it at that for now. There's still way too much yellows, way too much, yellow. So one of the ways we can correct for that is to come in Let's look at color balance. This is a color balance adjustment layer, right? It feels like a lot of yellow and green. So let's see if we can change that color balance a little, make it more magenta. Right, you can always turn the eyeballs on and off by clicking on them. Off, on. That's looking a lot nicer. Notice too where it says tone midtones. I'm putting more magenta into the gray areas of the image, right? The midtone areas. If I wanted to change, for example, the highlights here in the shirt, on the forehead, I could change those. I think this image is so in the middle, we're not going to see a big change switching from dark to light. But you can see us having added a little more magenta into the image. I'm also going to go back here and click on one of these droppers, right? This dropper here tells us what's white in the image. And I click on it, and then I'll just find something white. Oh, excuse me. Right, this will help us with our color balance in the image itself. But right, I clicked on this fish down here, and I lost everything in the shirt. Let's click on a gray, a middle gray. We'll click on that. That'll help us with our color balance, I hope. Click around here until we find something we like. Yeah, I like this warmer. I like the warmer color. I think it looks more natural. Right, so let's remember where we started at. This is our original working layer, the copy of the background layer, and then I put these 3 adjustment layers on top of it to start getting it to where I want it to be color-wise. So that's where we started, and this is where we are now. See, I lost some of the detail in this shirt here. And that looks like it's in the curves. So what I'll do there, maybe I'm going to look for another white spot just because, right? I picked that one. There we go. I brought it back. Right? Now it's just a little bit brighter. I want to find a black in here too, somewhere, maybe back here in the shade of the trees. Too much, right? Wrong spot. There we go, now we're getting there. Kind of like that. Very nice, all right. I'm going to press Command 0 to make it bigger on my screen. Always make it as big on your screen as you can do, so you can see what you're doing. And now I'll hold down the Option key again and click on the eyeball. By doing that, I'll turn off all the layers but the one I'm clicking on. So there's before and after. Back here in the levels, this slider is the gamma, the middle point, right? It's the 50% gray. And by sliding it one way or another, we create more gradations of white between mid-gray and 255. Or if you slide it the other direction, you create more black values. And this I find is a good way sometimes to bring things more in or out. You don't want to slide it too far because it gets out of hand fast, but this is usually a nice kind of getting started way to make things look a little nicer, right? So there's before, after. Let's come up here in curves, and we can kind of do the same kind of thing in curves too, right? I don't think that's going to serve us well in this image. What I'm trying to do is bring this guy back. Somewhere like this. But I also don't want to lose, all of that it's real light on the one side, on the right side, and real dark on the left side. Which I think, you know, that kind of symmetry and balance adds to the, well, I like this picture. All right, that's good enough, right? We can still see, like, he's still there. You know, he hasn't just turned into a blob. It's not too dark. And she's still well lit too. So I'll leave that for the moment. There's before and after, right? We haven't lost too much of him. 0. You know, although we kind of took care of some of this by changing the black and the white spots with the levels and curves, you can also come in here to the adjustment layers and do a brightness and contrast adjustment. I often start with the auto adjustments, so I'll click auto and see what Photoshop thinks. Right, it lowered the contrast a lot. Look at that. And so I wouldn't want that, you know. Right, it's kind of taking out what we just put in. It did make it a lot brighter. You know, it's just too much for me. What if we did 10 and minus 10? And even then, you know, I really miss that contrast. I'll leave it like that. All right. So here we go. Before, after. We've So far, you know, we've straightened this image, cropped it to a square, and added adjustment layers to do the color correction and make it, you know, look way better than it did having, you know, aged for 50-something years. Let's see, what's next? You know what? Let's look at this remove tool, right? Let's say we don't need this guy in here. And I'm just going to come on over here and click on one of my selection tools in the lasso area and choose the lasso. And I'll just kind of, you know, circle him. Don't mess with the grass. I don't have to be precious about it, just a big area. Click remove and Photoshop will do its little calculation, and there he's gone. Pretty nice, pretty well done. Boop, boop. I don't actually mind him being there. It's a gentleman who was on a charter 50 years ago. You could also use maybe the healing brush, or the remove tool rather. You can just paint out these kind of things. With any of these brushes, up here in the tool options, look up here at the top, it'll say size, any of the brushes, the paint brushes, the healing brushes, the remove tool, and we can make our brush size bigger, right, and take them out just like that. Let it do its thing. Boom, there you go. That one seems to work better than the lasso remove. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things that aren't there. But yeah, so this is the brush size, right? You can change those brush sizes however you like. I personally like to use the left and right square brackets on my keyboard because that allows me to see visually how big that brush is. Because, right, 40 doesn't mean anything to me. You know, I need it to be as big enough to get whatever out of the image that I want to get out. Right? Maybe we just like, we'll do this. Again, that's my remove tool. Notice too that I changed to the working layer to do these removals. If I had been up here on any of these tools, it wouldn't have worked. Oh no, all the fish are gone. Oh no, where'd the fish go? We'll go on back. Here, right? And also, I probably don't want to be doing that because it is destructive when I remove this or that from the image. So to do what I want to do now is, or in order to remove something, like the guy in the blue, I'm actually going to make a new blank layer, create a new layer right here, right by the trash can. Okay, I have a new blank layer. I'm going to click and drag this down here. And, you know, in here I'm going to call this remove guy. Always name your layers. A lot of times I would call this like retouch if I was doing like a model picture, editing, blemishes, something like that. But here I'm going to call it remove guy, all right? And I've still got my remove tool done. And look up here in the options, right? So it says sample all layers. So I'm going to go ahead and in this layer, I'm going to do this. Can't use the tool because the image is transparent, right? What that's telling me is there's nothing on this layer. So I'll click X here and I'll click on sample all layers. Still got my 40 pixel brush and I just kind of do this. Now, by putting it on that separate layer and clicking use all layers or sample all layers, I'm not actually changing the underlying image. Removing area. There you go. And look over here, it says remove guy. He's still there, right? I haven't changed this layer at all. So that's how layers can be non-destructive for us. Oh, by the way, over here, you know, I like for these to be bigger, right? I said zoom in on your image and make it so you can see it. Always control click on these thumbnails, on the thumbnail itself, right? This left-hand column here, and choose large thumbnails. It makes it a lot easier to see what's happening. Oops. Yeah, this is the way I like to have it set up. And eventually, you know, you run into a bunch of layers, and so I kind of keep it like this. Okay, so we've taken this old Polaroid, and I'll option click on the eyeball. There's where we started. Here's where we are now. You know, go ahead and take out the beer can too, just for family friendliness, right? There we go. Pretty nice. So we've straightened it, cropped it, colored it, and removed a guy. Now, one of the things we can do also is, right, see all this kind of visual noise of the image? We can try a filter and choose the noise filter and then maybe reduce noise. You can see what it does here, right? I'll just drag this strength up to the maximum. And click OK. Let's see what it did. See how it softened all this stuff up. It's a little bit too much. I'm going to come in filter, noise, reduce noise. I'm going to choose bump up preserve detail, drop down the strength, reduce color noise. And again, this is to your visual, you know, pleasure. Right, I'm just kind of, I'll click remove JPEG artifacts and click OK and see what we get. I'm not wild about that. Turn this off. It's like it just made it too mushy. We'll go with that. All right. Because then, cool, I've ate up almost half an hour doing this. We could sharpen the picture now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this layer again. I click Command J. I double click on that. I'm going to click, say sharpen. And I will say filter, sharpen. Let's try unsharp mask. This is a older way to do it, but it still checks out. You see that? Click OK here. And so when I turn that off, right, let me press Command plus to zoom in. You can also use the zoom tool here. And so, right, we've got this lady's face, sharpen layer, unsharpen, sharpen. Well, that's pretty good, all right? I'm going to go for it. But maybe it's too much, right? I only want some, I'm trying to kind of create contrast here. So maybe one of the things we can do is look at the blending modes. That's not going to work for these because I didn't blend in. I didn't merge the layer earlier, so that's a wrong way. Let's just do a mask. So these things here, these white places, these white thumbnails are masks. And I'll go ahead and click the mask button on this sharpen layer. Click. And what a mask does is like when you're painting your room, right? It tapes things off. It hides things from having changes made to them. So what I'm going to do here is mask everything out. I'll press Command I to flip this mask to black, meaning I can't see what's happening on the sharpen layer at all, right? Look, no change. Double click the, oh, whoops, it already is 100%. Click to zoom in. Right, when I turn this on and off, we're not seeing any change now. And what I actually want to sharpen is kind of her face, this edge here. And to do that, I'm going to press B for brush, or click on the brush tool. And we want white. White reveals, black conceals when you're using Photoshop masks. And so what I'm going to do is paint white around the edge of her face here, kind of over her ear, kind of edge of her hair, to make those features pop out a little more. Maybe we do it a little bit in the fish here. And you can see where I'm painting with white here, that's the part of this layer that's being revealed. Right, so what I wanted to do was just give us a little, maybe make her pop out a little more. I'll show you what that mask looks like by pressing the pipe key under the delete or backspace key on my keyboard. This shows us what's being revealed in this image. This pink won't show when we save it. It's just a visual indicator of where the mask, what's being masked out. There we go. And masks are hard to wrap your mind around, but once you do, you'll get it and you'll feel really good about it. So did that image size 10 by 11 inches at 72 pixels per inch is no good. So I'm going to uncheck resample. I'm going to call this 300 and then click resample. I'm going to change that to pixels. It's 728 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and make this one 800. We can get into like sizing images later, but 800 is a good size, and it wasn't that far off from where it was before. I'll click OK. Press Command 0 to bring it all up on my screen. And so, again, here's where we started, and here's where we've ended up. That is, what is it? Brighten, darken, crop, and sharpen, right? We fixed the color. We've resized it, and we have a nice little memory picture restored with just some basic Photoshop changes. I'll click on File and Export. Export as JPEG. There's no reason not to save it as a full quality JPEG. This is all fine. Canvas size 800, image size 800, etc. Click Export. Yes, JPEG will lose information. That's standard. Don't worry about it. OK. And I will save it DONE. Click Export. And that is that. Thanks for for coming and watching me do this live. Appreciate bearing with my stream of consciousness editing process, and I will see you all again soon.